Hey guys, it's Cass here, and today I'm doing my August wrap up. A little bit late, but you know, better late than never. So, I read some stuff in August. I've decided that at the end of this video there's going to be a rant, so you know, stick around if you want for that. But, let's just get into it. So the first thing I read in August was The Unpopular Vote by Jasper Sanchez. This one is about a trans boy who goes to a new school, and there he's very into politics. His father is a politician. Side note, knobhead. Absolutely hated his dad in here. He's so horrible and disgusting and transphobic and constantly dead naming him, and like literally has no redeeming qualities whatsoever. Horrific. So in that sense it might be quite hard to read for some people in here because like the dead naming is constant. But anyway, I just went completely off on a tangent then. Yes, he has a group of friends here, and one of them has been getting bullied for being gay, and then he hits back at the bullies and gets suspended. And because of this, Mark, our main character, sets out and tries to become part of the student council to make changes, etc. So yes, as I mentioned, the father side of it, horrific. He's not even a Republican either, he's a Democrat. So, you know, politicians are just snakes, all of them. I'm sure there's a few, but you know, very minute. But yes, in here, other than that, it's quite uplifting and positive and stuff. There was a little tiny weeny bit of unnecessary tension between two of the characters. I felt like it was put in there just to like make another bit of plot. It was so unnecessary. One character just started not talking to the other one for ages, and then at the end it was like this non-issue. So that's a thing. But other than that, I enjoyed the story. I liked the group of friends. I enjoyed reading about the whole school council thing. It's not a thing I really know about. I don't know if other schools do it nowadays in England, but when I was at school it wasn't a thing, so it was interesting to read about. All in all, a good book. After that I read The Sewing by Stephen Dos Santos. This is the second book in the Torchkeeper trilogy. The first one being the Sewing, the Reaping, what the hell is the first one? The Culling, that's the one. I read that last month, well, the month before last. Read this in August. And yeah, really great carry on to the series, can't really go into it much. The first book in the series, The Culling, is set in this dystopian world. I'm sure you heard me talk about it last month to wrap up. But yeah, stuff happens, people are taken in and trials and stuff happens and people get killed and they have incentives. All that jazz, I talked about it in my last wrap up. This is the sequel to that, and yeah, it was really good. New characters are brought in, we learned a lot of things about the government, about the people behind stuff. We learned about new things that we didn't know in the first book. Can't really go into anything, it'd be spoilers. And then it ended on a cliffhanger and other stuff's gonna happen. There's a rebellion in here. Stuff. Very much enjoyed it. After that I read Good Girl Bad Blood by Holly Jackson. This is the second book in A Good Girl's Guide to Murder series. And in here we're getting a little bit darker. I like the books sort of get darker and darker and darker as you read them. And in here, after the stuff that happened in the first book, Pip is doing her podcast, she's wrapping stuff up. They're going to the trials and stuff that are happening because of things that came out in the first book. But then one of her friends, Connor, comes to her and tells her that his brother has gone missing and the police are doing nothing about it and nobody seems to care. So can she help out? And at first she's a little hesitant, but then, you know, she can't not. So she starts looking into stuff and looking into what's going on. And then these, like, loads of stuff gets explored and gets brought into light. And it's really interesting and good. And yeah, really enjoyed this second book. Spoilers, the rant that is coming at the end of this video is about the third book, so you know, look forward to that. Then I read The Passing Playbook by Isaac Fitzsimmons. This is another book about a trans boy that goes to a new school, but here he wants to play football. He's just living his life, he's getting on with it, but then this law passes or is brought to the attention of the coach, and because his birth certificate has an F on it, he's benched and he needs to figure out whether he wants to go against that and then reveal that he's trans, or accept it but then not be allowed to play football, which is one of his big passions that he wants to do. So this one was really good. It was really cute. There's a bit of a romance in here as well that was really nice. There's a tiny bit of like aggressive, nasty stuff. His crush Justice's family is very religious, so there's a little bit of transphobia and homophobia from their end, but it's more in the background of the story, so it's not a big focus on this one. It's more uplifting and nice and cute and a good read. So yeah, The Passing Playbook. We're halfway through, so of course you know what time it is. It's a time for a message from one of our sponsors, and then I shall be back. Hello, lovely. How you doing, lovely? Oh, look at that lovely smiling face. That's for everybody subscribed. If you're not subscribed, then the smile is not for you and you can step off. Or just subscribe and enjoy the fun. Either way, it's your choice. So after that I read The Crossing by Manjit Man. This was my first book for the Join the Six Readathon that I was co-hosting. I went with a vocals pathway, and this one was for a book written in verse. So in here we follow two characters. One of them, Natalie, is from England. Recently her mother died of cancer. Her family is pretty down in the dumps because her area is getting gentrified and it's getting more expensive, and they can't live where they've lived their whole life, so they're being uprooted and thrown to the wolves, as it were. And sort of because of that, her brother is also getting pulled into an alt-right ideology. You know how they get their mitts on people that are struggling and try and make them think that it's somebody else's fault rather than the people's fault who it is. So all that's happening in her life, and the only thing that she can do is swim. It sort of helps her feel closer to her mum because her mother also swam. And she decides to swim across the channel to raise money for refugees, which is obviously something that her brother is not a fan of because alt-right, racism, all that jazz. And then on the other side of things we follow Sammy. He is from Eritrea, where everyone gets drafted to the military whether they like it or not. They're sort of pulled out of their life and thrown into this thing, trapped pretty much like slaves. And if you don't do it, then you're going to get put in prison and stuff and all that bad stuff. His father died because he was against everything and he got murdered. And his mother wants him to have a better life, so she's trying to get him to Europe because he has family in the UK, and hopefully he'll be able to feel better and be more protected and have a life if he gets away from this horrible situation. So it follows both of these characters. It's written in verse like I mentioned, and it'll go from one to the other, one to the other. At the beginning, for a very small amount of time, I did get a little bit confused as to when who was what. The font is slightly different, but it took my brain a little bit of time to understand. But this book was amazing. It was incredible. It was uplifting and also sad and also inspiring and also horrific. It was like all the emotions rolled into one. And yeah, it was just really good, and I can't even say anything more than that. It's brilliant. Read it. After that I read Children of the Quicksands by Afua Traore. This was for the Join the Six prompt, read a book by Own Voices person, and this is by a Nigerian German author, but it's set in Nigeria, and it was really magical and good. It's a middle grade. It's about this girl Simi whose mother sends her off to her grandmother's place because she has to go working, and before this she didn't even know she had a grandmother because her mum and her mother's mum became estranged, so we find a little bit more about that out throughout. But Simi is going from a big city where she has electric and running water and the internet and all this jazz, and she's going to a small village that doesn't have running water, doesn't have electric, is very much rooted in tradition and culture, and has all these like gods and goddesses and magic and all that jazz, and it was really good. I really enjoyed how much culture was in this book. It is slightly magical. There is this legend, this myth, this thing. There's a lake and children go to the lake and they disappear from the lake, and it's all because of these goddesses. And that bit, I was expecting it to be more magical, but it was just magical learning about different culture and learning about this place where everyone in the 21st century is just thinking that this is normal, but you know, just living in the middle of forest and just doing your thing. I just really enjoyed reading about it. The family aspect was great, these 3 generations and all of the family history that they had and the reasons why certain things were happening, why the mother wanted to move away and didn't want anything to do with her mum anymore, and stuff that happened in the past, and then all the goddess stuff. It was really good, so yeah, give it a read. And then the last book I read for the Join the Six Readathon was read a book written in first person, and that was This Is Going to Hurt by Adam Kay. This is non-fiction. I feel like everyone knows what this is about. It's about Adam Kay, who is a junior doctor, and it's just his diaries talking about his time in the NHS and all the stuff. It's funny, it's sarcastic, it's heartwarming, it's harrowing, it's infuriating, seeing how doctors are treated by the government and seeing how they have to work with and deal with extremely long hours and extremely low pay and like fuck their whole life up, but also they will because they're trying to save people. So yeah, it's just a really good book that I feel like most people could enjoy, because it is non-fiction, but it's not a heavy non-fiction, and it's interesting, and like there's stuff for everyone. The sadness, the happiness, the anger, the sarcasm, all of it. It was just really good. So yeah, not really much else to say. I feel like this is quite popular on BookTube, so you know about it. And then last but not least, I read As Good as Dead by Holly Jackson. This is the last book in the A Good Girl's Guide to Murder trilogy, and this one, as you can see, it's a bit of a chonker. The first half of this book I really enjoyed. It gets very dark. It gets a lot darker. Like I said earlier, the books get darker and darker and darker. And in here I really liked the way that Pip's emotions and her, like how she deals with stuff is shown in here, because she's not okay. She's been through a lot of shit, and of course she's gonna have like mental health things that are going on. She's also very headstrong, so she doesn't want people to know about it, so she's very quiet about how she feels, but she's clearly got PTSD from what happened in the second book. And I really enjoyed the fact that that was shown rather than it just like, well, that happened, let's move on. So yeah, I enjoyed that. In here, everything gets a lot closer to Pip. Stuff's happening to her. She's going out on her runs trying to clear her head. And when she comes back home, these weird mysterious markings are there. She feels like someone's following her and looking at her. And I really enjoyed the first half of this book. There was a big reveal, something happened. I'll talk more about it in my rant in a minute or so. And again, I really enjoyed that, sort of the middle bit of the book. It was good, it was heart racing, it was interesting. And then that happened. And I hate read the last few hundred pages of this because it really irritated me. I'm sure there are many people that really enjoy the way this book went and was like, yeah, go you. But no, for me, really annoyed me. It just went completely off script of everything we know about Pip and Ravi. They just, we've been with these characters for several books now. We know who they are as people, we know how they deal with stuff, and then it just felt like all that was thrown out the window for like this big shock factor for no reason. And then everything was just pointless anyway. But yeah, I'll talk more about that in spoilers in a second. So I'm just going to throw it out here. If you haven't read this book and don't want any spoilers, then thanks for watching. If you have read this book and want to know what my thoughts are, carry on watching. Or if you haven't read this book but also are not going to, or don't care about spoilers, then stick around because it might be fun to listen to me rant about it. So yeah, for everyone else, thanks for watching, and I'm going to carry on now. So if you hear anything else and it spoils you and you're sad, it's your own fault, I told you. So now we're here. This book, oh my god, it was so irritating. Literally, let me go back a bit. I'm going to spoilers for the rest of the book because otherwise we're going to jump in. Right, so in here, Pip's obviously getting stalked. All these weird chalk men are being drawn on her house and it's all weird and creepy and it's like, oh, what's going on? She's being followed. And then she finds out all of this information about the DTK killer, duct tape killer guy, and these victims and how somebody in the past, one of the victims, had similar things going on. Her sister mentioned it, was like in an old interview, her sister mentioned these weird chalk people that were on the outside of a house before her sister went missing and died. So Pip finds that connection there, of course, and then she's digging in deeper. She wants to know who this killer is. And yeah, I really enjoyed this. I did think it was really obvious who the killer was, but I wasn't mad about that, even though Pip was being thick and she couldn't see it. But also, I think it was just because of the way it was written. Some of the foreshadowing was very heavy-handedly done. Say, for example, oh, I can't remember his name. The guy that killed him, let's just say. Let's just call him Andy's dad, because I can't be asked to remember his name. But yeah, when Andy's mum walks out of the house at one point, and then Holly Jackson says, oh yeah, and then the mum walks past, and then she's fondling this necklace and then looking at it. She's never mentioned a necklace. She never describes people's necklaces. So instantly I was like, well, obviously it was the dad, because that necklace is clearly one of the things that he took from a previous victim. We know there's a necklace that was took from a previous victim. Bam! That foreshadowing is very heavy-handed, but I'll allow it. I'm still enjoying the book. And then again, a little bit later, she's looking at the picture when she figures out Andy knew the sister of one of the girls that was murdered, and she's looking at the picture, and then for no reason, apart from foreshadowing, Holly Jackson mentions the purple hairbrush on the table next to the picture, and I was like, well, there we go. The purple hairbrush, we know, is also one of the items that was taken from one of the victims, so we know it's definitely her dad. But Pip doesn't put those two and two together. She thinks it's somebody else that worked there. She's all about Daniel De Silva. She like really wants to gun for him being a murderer. And yeah, really enjoyed all this. And then she obviously gets captured by Andy's dad. I probably should remember his name, because I can't just keep calling him Andy's dad. Can't be bothered. So yeah, she gets captured by him. It's really heart-wrenching and like, oh my days, what's going on? And then she's in the warehouse thing, and he's doing all the taping her head up, and it's just like, oh my days, this book is so good. And all of her trying to get out of here, and her getting out, and even her bashing him on the head several times with a hammer. I was like, yes, get in, he needed that. And now you can go to the police and be like, bitch, I told you several times, here's all the evidence. But no. Instead of going to the police and being like, here's the platter I laid out for you, literal serial killer, you're welcome, she decides to just get Ravi, who's, let's not forget, whose brother was falsely accused of murder, and he knows, his family knows what it feels like for someone to be falsely accused of murder. She gets him, and she's like, oh hey, shall we just cover up this whole crime scene and falsely accuse somebody else of murder? And he's just like, yeah, why not? So first of all, that really pissed me off, because he knows what it feels like to have a family member falsely accused of murder. Let's just go a side note here. Max Hastings, obviously absolute disgusting, despicable human being. He was a rapist. He got off in the second book. He got off with the rapes and wasn't accused. I mean, it was accused. It wasn't put in prison for it, which, as we all know, as horrific and horrible as that is, like, it's a fact of life. Most rapists don't get put in prison for the rapes. It's horrible. It's something that should change, obviously. But that doesn't mean you can accuse him of murder and make him be put in prison for murder. Just my opinion. They're two completely different things. And I'm not saying that he's innocent, and I'm not saying that he shouldn't be held accountable for what he's doing. But even if you're the most vile person ever and you've done something like that, imagine waking up and being accused of murder and having all this evidence against you. Like, how horrible would that be? And his family as well. Again, they're knobheads, but they're looking out for their son in a knobhead way. You can't just put another family through that as a murder. And again, I said, I'm sure loads of people, when they read that, they were like, yes, Pip and Rav, yes, you get him, boo. Max deserves to go to prison. And I'm sure loads of people loved it. But, in my opinion, it just was so out of character for Pip and Ravi to do this. It just ruined everything we know about them. This whole series, we've known Pip as somebody who is very positive about the truth being set free and people being held accountable for what they do, and for innocent people to not be in prison. Oh yeah, side note, there's somebody in prison. She knows that they're in prison. She's literally talked to their mother, and she just doesn't care. She's like, oh well, forgot that there's an innocent guy in prison that I could have set free when I proved that the DTK killer was this other guy. And then it's just like really blasé about it. Holly Jackson, the writing, right at the end, she gets an email after all the other stuff. She gets an email from them like, oh, hey Pip, I know you couldn't take on our case, but we think he's gonna get out. And then Pip's just like, oh shit, yeah, there's that innocent guy in prison, forgot about him. Oh well. And it's just so out of character of her. Like, she'd just forget that there's an innocent guy in prison that she could help set free, and she just doesn't care. Let's just, I'm going from one bit to the other instead of in a linear way because this book pissed me off so much. But let's talk about why she did it. She obviously doesn't, she knows the police are shit in her area. She doesn't believe in them. She doesn't think that they'll do the right thing, which, that is fair, that is completely fair. But she has this issue with like 1 or 2 police officers, and surely, like throughout all of the other books, she's been very like, ha, here's the proof, you knobheads. But when she's uncovered a serial killer vibes, she's just like, oh no, I won't do that. It just doesn't make any sense. And then the other reason, she doesn't trust the police, and she believes that if they came over, they'd just see her kill this really respectful man in the place and she'll get done for it. So she has to make out somebody else did it. The amount of evidence, it took her a whole night, her and Ravi a whole night to get rid of all this evidence. Surely when you're like 7 hours deep in moving a body and covering up blood and cleaning off fingerprints, you think, maybe there is enough evidence here for me to have proved that he was definitely the person that did it. Like, what? It was just so stupid. Like, if there wasn't so much evidence there, I would understand. Like, if her fingers weren't in the boot of the car, if she didn't literally have flipping tape wrapped around her whole head and then pulled it off with all of her DNA on it and his DNA on it and the tape stickiness on her and literal sores all over her face because of her tape. If she didn't literally mention the fact that the rope was in the place that he'd killed everyone with, so that was another piece of evidence. If there wasn't all of this obvious evidence, then yeah, maybe I can see why. But there was so much there that proved who he was. The phone. She had proof that he was the person that was calling her being a creepy bastard. And she'd already told the police. She'd told them about the guys, the little chalk men on her wall. And she also had proof that one of the previous victims had that happen to them. She had proof of Andy's email saying she knew who the killer was. She had proof because she knew she had a picture of the hairbrush, which was one of the trophies taken from a previous victim. And she knew that the mother had a necklace that was a trophy taken from a previous victim. She knew all of this before she decided that there wasn't enough evidence to prove who he was. So we're just gonna cover it all up, spend a whole day, get every single friend that we own involved in this somehow, but also trying to make out like they're not involved. And none of them questioned anything either. All of this, and then she decided to go against it. It was just so stupid. And then the stupidest thing at the end, none of it was even necessary. It just felt like half of this book was filler for no reason. It didn't need to happen because instantly they got his blood. Oh, well, he's the killer and he's also this rapist that used to rape people. It was so unnecessary. It was like the whole last half of the book was just written for no reason, because the only thing it did is fuck Pip up even more. Because she felt like she couldn't talk to her family or talk to Ravi, or she was obviously on edge. And she's already got PTSD, so moving a body around. Oh yeah, side note, the fact these 2 teenagers moved a body that had their head smashed in multiple times, and neither one of them at any point felt ill or felt weird or threw up or seemed to have any sort of feelings about that fact at all. Is that normal? Just picking up a big old dead body with blood all over his head, wrapping him in something, putting him in a car, spinning him over. How did neither of them have any emotion about this? Mental. Just yeah. I feel like there's even more that I could talk about, but it's just, I've been going on about this for ages, and you can tell my feelings. It was just so stupid and pointless, and it ruined the characters. And this whole like, oh yeah, Pip and Ravi. It doesn't make you a good boyfriend to agree to cover up a murder and implicate somebody who is innocent. That makes you a fucking idiot and weird and wrong, and think about the fact that this happened to your own ass brother, but you just don't care about that. What? And can I also say what? So yeah, like as soon as obviously she did the murder, and I was fine with that, it was diminished responsibility. Yeah, she got away and came back and hit him, but she was clearly scared out of her mind. This guy was after her, he was a serial killer, he'd gotten away with it all this time. She needed to hit him and kill him so he doesn't come after her. I totally understand all of that jazz, but the instant she was like, oh yeah, and we can frame Max Hastings, and I was like, oh god, is this really where this book is gonna go? Is this some sort of like pseudo justice? He got away with rapes, obviously not good, so let's just make up that he murdered a man? No. And again, all these friends, she's like, oh yeah, we've got to be really secretive, and then like part of the plan was get every single person that she knows involved in it, and then just say to them, oh, I'm going to ask you to do something, but you're never allowed to ask me what it's about, as if everyone's not going to know instantly when it comes out that this dude was murdered in the exact spot that they planted a phone, or, you know, it was just stupid. And she's just like fucked everybody's life up now as well, because all of them are all going to know that they're implicated in a murder before they knew it was a murder. So she's got all these people involved like, oh, I can't really tell you what it's about, but will you help me? And most friends are going to be like, yeah, because you're not going to expect she's covering up a fucking murder. Now every single one of her friends has got some sort of PTSD, or got some sort of guilt in the back of their brain, whether they try to think about it or not, because randomly at night they're just going to open their eyes and be like, I helped cover up a murder. You know, it's just not on. And yeah, it just really pissed me off. It was going so well as well. Like I said, I really enjoyed the first half of the book, the whole serial killer vibes. It didn't need to be this long. It's like 700 pages. Chop up the last 30 pages. That's 30. That's 300. Oh no, it's not 700. It's like 550. Chop off the last couple of 100 pages, so none of that happened. And instead, after the murder, have Pip go to the police like this. Ah, you fucking idiots! I've told you. And then, like, the main dude of the police loses his job, and then that's real justice. And like, it's not justice making somebody go down for a murder they didn't commit. And then also, Holly Jackson does this thing where it's like, when Max gets to the police station, he sees Pip and he runs over and he's getting really angry at her, and then she like says to his face like, yeah, I did it, and what? And then we're meant to see Max as the horrible person. Again, I'm not saying he's not a horrible person. He's a rapist, he's disgusting, he's horrific, he's disgusting, it's not good. But how do you expect him to react? No matter how much of a knobhead person he is, of course you're going to be angry if someone says to your face that they've just made you go down for a murder you didn't commit. Of course he's going to be angry. What else is he going to do other than get raging and try and hit her? But he's made out like, oh, he's off the handle, so he should be going in prison, because look what he does to that girl. He did that to the girl because of what she did to him first. And again, for the 27th time. I'm not saying that he shouldn't be in prison for the rape. I'm not saying he's not a horrible person. But that's not justice. Even if you don't care about him, you should care about the innocent guy that was in jail. Yes, he managed to get out eventually because, unbeknownst to Pip when she was doing all this, there was DNA evidence that proved that Andy's dad was the serial killer. So this other innocent guy got out of jail. But in her mind, when she was concocting all of this, he was never going to be found out as a serial killer, which means all of these girls that got murdered would never have justice. And there's an innocent guy in prison that would have stayed there and he wouldn't have got justice. But she thinks like these 4 or 5 murdered girls and this innocent guy in prison and these girls' families and the innocent guy in prison's mum who's been campaigning about the fact he's clearly innocent. All of their justice is less important than getting Max Hastings in prison. And it's not. Just my opinion. So yeah, I'm gonna end it there because I've been ranting for like 16 minutes about this book. So, and most people probably moved off as well because they don't want the spoilers. But for those few of you that stayed, let me know in the comments what you thought. I know a few people that have read this book and rated it high, so I'm interested, especially in their opinions, about what I think and how they think differently. So yeah, let me know down below any of your opinions. If it is spoilers about this, maybe put some like write spoilers ahead or something for the people that haven't read the book and didn't watch the ending. But yeah, just say some words down below about this book or any of the others, what you thought. If you've read it, do you agree or disagree? If you haven't read it, I don't know, say some words down below and I'll reply. You know, that's how we do here. So yeah, if this is your first video by me and you enjoy it, then check out some of my others. And if you continue to enjoy them, please subscribe, that'd be awesome. Anyway guys, I'll see you in a few days with another video.